What would you do if your parents threatened to take away all your belongings, privileges, and money? Teddy and Leova Gonzalez had a habit of doing this whenever their two kids did anything to anger them, even something as minor as dating someone they disapproved of. When Teddy, Leova, and their daughter were found dead at their home in New South Wales, Australia, the authorities assumed they were victims of extreme hate crime. However, in the weeks following their demise, the lone surviving son became the target of the investigation after they threatened to take away his car. Let's dive into the case of the Gonzalez family. Before we get into today's case, I just want to talk to you guys about this awesome new editing software by Wondershare called Filmy. It's a brand new way you can edit your videos super fast and super easy, with really fun and cute templates that can transform your clips into share-worthy videos. There are over 1,000 high-quality resources to choose, including audio, filters, titles, and transitions. And what I love about it is that it is so easy to use. I even asked my mom to try it out. With Filmy, you can personalize your videos to have the style you want to make them. There's no more unnecessary stress or hard work to make content. Check this out. First, you can pick your style from the over 20 different themes, import your footage, and then let the template do all of the work for you. Video editing has never been so easy, and if you really want to do a bit of work, then you can go into advanced editing where you can change things around to fit the way you like them. Choose the appropriate aspect ratio, and then boom! You can even make them suitable for TikTok. I know y'all are obsessed with TikTok. There's no video editor like Wondershare's Filmy, so try it out for yourself for free. Check the link in the description. Teodoro Teddy Gonzalez met his wife Mary, who preferred to go by her middle name, Leova, in their native country of the Philippines. The couple was totally devoted to each other and very ambitious, determined to make a success of themselves, especially once they started having a family. Seth was their first and only son. 3 years after he was born, they had their second child, a daughter named Claudine. Wanting to give their kids the best possible opportunities, Teddy and Leova worked tirelessly to build their fortune. Teddy was a qualified lawyer, but spent most of his time on businesses he owned, which included a hotel he built from the ground up. The hotel where the young family also lived represented a large portion of the Gonzalez's income, at least for a few years. Sadly, in 1990, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake rocked the island of Luzon, where the family lived, and the hotel collapsed. Thankfully, everyone survived the devastating collapse. However, during the disaster, Seth became trapped under the rubble of the hotel, and his dad bravely ran back into what was left of the building to save his son. After this, the family decided to immigrate to Australia and start a new, hopefully better life. Teddy went back to law school and retrained so he could practice law in Australia, later opening his own firm with Leova. Their law firm specialized in immigration law, and their success allowed them to purchase a beautiful home in a middle-class neighborhood. It also meant they were in a position to be very generous towards their children, sending them to excellent schools, buying them cars, and vowing to buy them houses when they completed their studies. However, this generosity came at a price. Teddy and Leova were very strict parents, especially when it came to Seth and Claudine's education. You may have heard the phrase tiger parent. Tiger parenting is a very strict, demanding form of parenting. Tiger parents push their kids academically and accept nothing less than perfection. So while Teddy and Leova were very supportive, they made it clear that their children could only have everything promised to them if they held up their end of the bargain. That meant perfect grades, perfect behavior, and above all else, respect for how much their parents worked for them. From a young age, Seth was passionate about music and singing. This was fine as a hobby, but his parents didn't want him to get comfortable with the idea of having a musical career, since they intended for him to become a lawyer, like Teddy, or a doctor. As he grew into a teen, it became pretty clear that Seth wasn't interested in academics at all. His grades were average at best, and honestly, he just wanted to work on his music. Despite this, once he graduated, he was able to get into college and went to study medical science at the University of New South Wales. He just managed to get by with his poor grades for 2 years before dropping out in hopes of pursuing his music career. He formed an a cappella band with a few other guys, and they called themselves Definite Vibes. Comment down below if you think that name would have survived the early 2000s. Although they never found international success, they were pretty popular in the local community and surrounding towns. They were hired to sing at weddings and birthday parties, as well as live music nights in bars and clubs. They even had a fan page. Well, Seth had a fan page, and it was run by a family friend, Daisy Diaz. Although, allegedly, Seth actually set up the page himself. He wasn't bringing in doctor or lawyer money, but he was starting to make a living with his group. Unfortunately, it still wasn't enough for Teddy and Leova, who wanted to make sure their son invested in a career that would work out long term. After a lot of fighting and disagreements, Seth agreed to go back to school, this time to study law like his dad. For a while, things seemed to be going pretty well. Seth was getting the best grades of his life, and his dad was so proud of his success that he gave Seth a job as a paralegal in his own law firm. But those grades were just one of Seth's many scams and lies. In reality, his grades were horrible, but he'd found a way to falsify his academic record so his parents would think he was doing well. But as with most things, nothing good lasts forever, and eventually, they found out. Claudine was the total opposite of her brother. She was happy to fulfill her parents' wishes. She worked assiduously in school and had ambitions of becoming a teacher. However, as she was finishing up high school, her mom's worst nightmare came true. Claudine had a boyfriend. Worried that her boyfriend would distract her from Claudine's studies, Leova made Claudine break up with him and then moved her daughter to Melbourne to live with a family member and finish high school without any other distractions. Infuriated, Claudine revealed to her parents that Seth was faking his good grades and that he was closer to being kicked out than making the dean's list. As punishment, Seth lost a lot of privileges, the most devastating being access to his beloved green Ford Fiesta, complete with a personalized license plate. Seth was devastated, furious with his sister for revealing his secret, and mortified that he had to take the bus to college, somewhere he didn't even want to be. As with every argument he had with his parents, life went on as normal, and Seth would have to wait for them to stop being mad before he got his car back. That day came and went, and he managed to stay out of any significant trouble. That was until July 10th, 2001. Seth spent the day at his dad's law firm, working late until he headed out to meet a friend. He picked his friend up at their house around 7 p.m. and the two went into the city, where they ate dinner at Planet Hollywood, then headed over to an arcade. At 11 p.m., Seth dropped his friend off back home and then drove back to his own house. When he came home, he found the door was already open, and the first thing he saw when he entered the house was blood.
Someone has shot my parents. I think they're all bleeding. They're on the floor.
What suburb are you in?
They're not breathing. What do I do?
When Seth came home, he found his whole family dead. The scene, according to reports, was extremely gruesome and even more suspicious. Claudine had died first. It looked as though she was studying in her room when her assailant came in and beat her with a baseball bat. After, they covered her body with a red sweater, as if to hide her injuries. They put her time of death at about 4 p.m. Leova came home with a bag of groceries. She hadn't even had the chance to put her purse down before she was stabbed multiple times with kitchen blades from her own home. The groceries and her purse were found all over the dining room floor, and they estimated her time of death was about 5 p.m. The final casualty was Teddy. When he arrived home just before 7 p.m., he was stabbed in the back and had his spinal cord severed, which caused him to go completely paralyzed. Like his wife, he was stabbed all over his body. On the wall, the assailant had left a racially charged message in blue spray paint. The police naturally assumed this was a hate crime, especially after Seth told them a few days prior his parents got into a road rage incident with a man who insulted them for their Asian heritage. However, the police soon realized that none of their leads were going anywhere, and that their prime suspect was right under their nose. Things started to look bad for Seth the moment he started talking to the police. Their first concern was where Seth was between the time he left work to when he went to meet his friend, as other staff members at the office said he didn't stay as late as he first claimed. Seth gave two different stories. The first was that he drove home at 5 p.m. and sat in his car in the driveway, not wanting to go inside because it was heavily raining. After a while, he decided to go visit a friend who just moved house, but he got lost and just drove around until 8 p.m. Strangely, Seth couldn't give them the name or number of his friend, and he couldn't remember their home address. When he realized his story wasn't adding up, he gave them a new alibi. This time, he parked his car in the driveway, then called a cab and headed into the city. Next, he went to a bordello and spent a couple of hours with one of the ladies that worked there. He probably didn't think the police would follow up on this claim, but they did, and the lady he claimed to have seen told them she'd never seen Seth in her life. He got a lot of mixed attention at the combined funeral he held for his family too. Although he managed to squeeze out a few tears, attendees commented that he was super calm and barely showed any emotion. That wasn't the strangest part. During the eulogy, Seth broke into song.
Sorry, I never told you all I wanted to say.
That was so powerful. Academy Award.
Later, people commented that his performance was cringy, inappropriate, and narcissistic. After the funeral, Seth went straight to work trying to access his inheritance of over $1 million. He started spending straight away, buying multiple cars and going out partying, just like the Menendez brother who we covered in a previous video. Little did he know, the police were hot on his tail. His aunt, Emily Luna, had a horrible feeling that Seth was involved and went to the police. On that day, she dropped by the house at 5 p.m. to visit her sister Leova, but the lights were off and the house was quiet, but she thought she saw a figure near the door. Figuring it was just a coat rack, Emily left. She'd actually seen Seth creeping up to the door, prepared for his mom to walk through the door. Seth was arrested and charged with all 3 homicides. Because of this, he was cut off from access to his inheritance, which left him with nothing to pay for a decent lawyer. It wasn't like they could have helped him anyway. The evidence against Seth was damning. 2 fake alibis, a weird funeral, and his spending spree were just some of the evidence presented at trial. It was found he'd been planning this for a long time and had previously ordered seeds for poisonous plants around the same time Leova had to be hospitalized with severe food poisoning. They also found blotches of blue spray paint on the cuff of one of his sweaters. It wasn't difficult for Seth to be found guilty. On September 17, 2004, he became one of the youngest people sentenced to 3 life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole. He will spend the rest of his life in Goulburn Correctional Center. That brings us to the end of today's video. What do you think of this case? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below.